All right, welcome back. Episode 31 of the Young Old Heads podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Tommy, aka TV Sports Guys. I'm here with my good friend and co-host Max, aka Cards Max. Max, say what's up.
What's up?
And we're very lucky to be joined today by a Pokemon legend, a true young old head in the hobby, trading card Joe. Joe, how you doing? Where you at these days?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Happy to be on the podcast. I'm in Seattle, Washington, and I used to be in North Carolina. Got to meet good old Max over here, and that's how we kind of connected. And yeah, it's been a nice friendship ever since. So, Tommy, I know it's our first time connecting. So nice to meet you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we love having Seattle guests out here on the Young Old Heads podcast. But Joe, me and you actually connected because I posted a picture of one of my old roommates who moved out a few months ago. But Chris, when I moved in with him after college, he saw that I was collecting cards, and you're from St. Louis too, Joe?
Yeah, from St. Louis, right outside.
So he was like, I need a cool Pujols card. You got to help me find it. I helped him get a nice Topps Chrome rookie. And then you replied to the tweet or sent me a DM and was like, what the heck? You know Chris? So always funny when you have random small world stuff like that. But we're super glad to have you on the podcast. I personally am super ignorant on Pokemon, and we've often talked about trying to compare across the trading card world, figure out some comparisons, just kind of a fun way of talking about cards in a way that I feel like other content, doesn't really do too much of. So Joe, you want to just start with kind of a breakdown of how you started collecting and kind of where you're at now on it?
Who is Trading Card Joe?
Who is Trading Card Joe? Yeah. So, started collecting as a kid. I think the first.
How old are you now?
So right now I'm 24. So 1998. I really started a collection from my uncle's 90s baseball cards, bunch of junk wax. I had a shoebox full of baseball cards, and that's pretty much how I started collecting. I've always been a collector of sorts, not necessarily cards. I've always liked collecting coins and stamps. I was really close with my grandpa, so I had a bunch of old man hobbies when I was a little kid.
That's the true young old head there.
Yeah. So I've always thought just collecting stuff in general was super fun. My first pack of Pokemon cards I ever opened was base set 2. I don't remember what age, but I remember I had a binder full of base set 2. Wishing I kept those sealed now, just because.
What's base set 2 in sports terms? What would be that?
Oh man, that's a hard one. Max, would you be able to articulate that better? Because sports better than you know.
That would be if 1952 Topps re-released 1952 Topps with the same cards, except in 1956.
Okay, I got it. That makes total sense.
Because
you ripped base set 2, and that's what you were ripping Pokemon-wise.
Yeah, and to be honest, I that was probably one of the last Pokemon packs I opened up until I was 16 or 17. Because I really was opening up Yu-Gi-Oh a bunch. I all my friends liked Yu-Gi-Oh. It's I wouldn't say play the TCG because I never really learned how, but we would just throw cards at each other. I don't know, just stuff kids do.
Yeah, kid versions. I babysat kids, and watching them play TCG is hilarious. I love it.
I feel a very common anecdotal trope that I've seen with the younger Gen Z trading card collectors is that when we were growing up, first, second, third grade, even through middle school, if you collected at that point and opened cards at that point, no one that you knew played the TCG, and you weren't going to go out of your way to find out how. Nowadays, there's more resources to be able to build your decks online and play competitively. But when we were smaller and littler, that resource wasn't available, let alone peers that also wanted to engage in playing the trading card game. So I think that has resulted in a skewed amount of TCG gamers being millennials and older crowd.
Yeah, and I mean, I played sports. I played soccer, basketball, a little bit of volleyball. I did one semester of community college JUCO soccer. But growing up, I was an athlete. I didn't know if like it was cool enough to be like talking about like collecting Pokemon cards and stuff. But like now that I'm like an adult, and I'm like, I don't really care what anybody thinks. Like I like it. I'm gonna enjoy it. So I wish my younger self would have like talked about it more and enjoyed it more. Which is cool. I get to enjoy it now.
For sure. That's something me and Max have talked a lot about on episodes, is like, I grew up, I didn't even talk about the fact that I had a huge baseball card collection with a lot of people, but also like nowadays I feel like it's just like pretty rare to find like people our age who have like hobbies that they're passionate about and like aren't
Sure.
self-conscious about. And I feel like if you're passionate about anything, that's a positive, and you should just like be proud of it. So I'm glad that that's where you ended up on your card collecting journey, the same as me and Max here. But
Tommy, I
right.
always thought you were the opposite in that you were more unabashed about your collecting. I didn't know you were a closeted collector.
I was not a closeted collector necessarily. I was definitely like Joe though, where like I collected like a lot of weird things sometimes, or like what my family used to say is I used to get like obsessed with things. So like I
You
like
had a phase?
memorized all the World Series winners one year when I was like in second grade, or like stuff like that, where like I would just kind of get like hyper locked in on something. But cards were like the thing that like
Yeah. I
sustained.
know even during 2019-ish, so pre-COVID, pre-boom, before collecting was more mainstream, I was still like, yeah, I like even like telling my friends, yeah, I'm into this like baseball card thing. And they're like, oh, like vintage, and I'm like, no, like one's just made like a year ago. And my friends would be confused. It was obviously, you look at the box, it says ages 6+. It's pretty hard to convey that you're into this stuff. But now that there's a lot of more money and finances being influxed into this, it's much more digestible, and it's more of like a hype beast thing.
Yeah,
People get it more.
Joe, how many people sent you the article about the NFL player that sold like a card for $1 million, a Pokemon card for $1 million, and then like quit the NFL the next day? Did you get a lot of text?
Yeah, like my aunts and uncles, like everything. They're like, "Do you have these? Can you look at my old collection?" Like all this like stuff, and I'm like, I guarantee you, nobody we know has that card.
The 1996 Kamakuro Ichiro, oh, excuse me, not Ichiro, the Illustrator card. I was messing up my beginning with eyes.
Yeah, a lot of people sent me that, which was funny. And you know what's really nice is now I have a really big family, so I'm like I have 30 cousins, and I'm number 23, so like all of them are younger than me, and a lot of them are starting to be like 3, 4, 5, so they're starting to like get their own hobbies like dinosaurs and Pokemon cards and stuff. So now I'm like the cool cousin or the cool uncle, because like I've got access to all the cards and I can send them everything. So I'm hoping that like they enjoy it more as a kid like than I did, because they have like more of an access to it like because of me. So that's kind of like one of my goals, is like I develop into like Trading Card Joe as a persona, is like being able to help like my cousins and my nephews and everything kind of start collecting. So it's been really fun.
That's awesome.
I'm intrigued. So I was at a sports card show yesterday. I was buying a few boxes of value bins and mostly junkier cards that people didn't really like. And I made a deal with a kid on one row of his value box for I think $400. And after the fact, I was talking to one of the dealers, and I was articulating that, oh yeah, he was a tough negotiator. He wouldn't come off 425. He was saying that I was at 450, even though I was actually at 400. And he was just saying, my dealer friend at the other table was like, yeah, that kid's just all in it for the money, which is definitely something that's more common with sports. Lots of new kid collectors aren't there just to open the pack and get the Bryce Harper base card and enjoy it like I did when I was 14, a little bit older to enjoy that, but when I was at that age. But a lot of it is in it for the money. Are you seeing from your own experiences, younger collectors think about the finances?
Joe, are your 3 and 4-year-old cousins worried about their investment portfolios?
No, not necessarily the 3 and 4-year-old cousins, but this kid I was dealing with was like 9.
I don't know. So like I have like a handful of cousins that are around 3 or 4. They really could care less like what the value is. Now, I think one advantage they do have is if I do ship them stuff, I'm going to ship them top loaders and sleeves, so like that they can protect it. And then I'll tell their dad and mom like, hey, if this card gets pulled, throw it in the sleeve or whatever, and hold it. So I think not so much that they're worried about like what it's worth, but I think like condition. I don't know, education I think is really important. So if I can educate them that like, hey, it's fun to show this off and play with it, but like don't trade it for like a ripped up Pikachu card from like Battle Styles or something. Like keep it, don't take it to school, stuff like that. So
Battle Styles, give it to me. What's the comparison there?
oh, Battle Styles
Is that like opening day?
Opening day, yeah, it's like opening day.
All right, cool.
So I just
oh, you're good, Max. Go.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you're asking about Battle Styles, which is just like a wave of releases. I'm going to give my framework. Joe, you can correct me. I encourage you to correct me.
Sure. Okay.
But every 2 years, in line with the Pokemon video games, which I have never played in my entire life. I never owned a Nintendo DS. I never owned a Game Boy. That was banned in my household. Video games rot your brain, kids. But there is a Pokemon. I think it's a new Pokemon game every 2 years. I think this most recent set for 2020 through 2022 when they released the cards is Sword and Shield. The one before that was Sun and Moon. And usually they release 5 to 6. Pokemon TCG Company releases 5 to 6 sets each year under the umbrella branch of Pokemon Sword and Shield, Battle Styles, or Rebel Clash, or base set Sword and Shield. And usually that spans about 2 years in total. And with the exception of the 25th anniversary, there's one special set per year. For Sun and Moon in 2019, that was Hidden Fates. For 2021, it was Shining Fates. Very fun name, but very, unoriginal naming. But in regards to that, there's some sets that are worth more or less than other sets, and that's largely oriented on the chase cards. You have your, I think, 2 commons per pack, 2 uncommons per pack. Some people buy as low as, a cent or 2 cents per. You get 1 rare card. The rare can be a holo. The rare can be a non-holo. There's reverse holos, which are a different design. And then there's your ultra rares, which are your more powerful cards with higher hit points, higher HP. And you can also get variations of the ultra rare cards with different art designs. And usually in this modern age, the amount of alt arts or full arts of desirable Pokemon what determines the long-term value of a product.
Okay. So, Joe,
Rebel
question.
Clash had like 1 alt art of Empoleon, which is a really cool penguin Pokemon, which is now worth like $30, and that was the biggest chase of Rebel Clash. So it's worth under SRP at this point.
Okay. So am I hearing this correctly that like the video games come out every couple years or whatever, and that's kind of like for sports reasoning like a year, like 2022 tops. 2022 is gonna have a Tops Chrome, Tops Archives, Tops Heritage, and then like each Pokemon video game is gonna have like different tiers of releases for that video game. Basically, am I correct on that?
I would say like an era, like Sword and Shield, let's say 2 years. That's like one long season in like baseball or basketball. It is, you could compare it to that. And yeah, so when I think of like sets I'm going to buy, there's a couple of different things. So like back in the day, there might have been 70, 80 cards to a set. And there might have been like 5 holographic cards that you wanted to get. So like base set, you wanted to get like Charizard. That obviously is the main one. Now a set like Evolving Skies has like 10 alternate arts. Each of them are worth $100 or more. So like just the set is 3 times as big. So there's 200 or 2.5 times. So there's 250 cards per set instead of 70 cards per set. So the sets are bigger, but there's more chase cards. And it's, you could think of it kind of like the era as like a season.
But usually with the English sets, they combine 1 or 2, usually it's 2 Japanese sets that release a few months earlier. So the Japanese iterations come out before the English iterations. And it combined 2 very successful Japanese sets. And partly is because Eevee and the evolutions of Eevee, you get like a fire Eevee, you get an ice Eevee, you get, Leafeon, Glaceon, Flareon. I'm going to say them in the Pokemon names and not just in the names. And they're very popular Pokemon, and seeing all the designs for all 7 of them, that I believe there's 7. Last time I checked, there's 7 of them, is very popular for people to want to collect. So it makes people want to rip and want to chase that. And I guess one more thing that I want to pick your brain on, Joe. When we were collecting, when we were youngsters, there wasn't any chase cards. There wasn't any real monetary value associated with opening a pack of Diamond and Pearl, which was an era like 8-10 years ago. Now, do your kid, do the kids that you interact with, they see a Shining Fates Charizard and I'm like, oh wow, that's a massive card. I have to protect this.
So yeah, I think that's a huge difference. Whenever I was collecting, I didn't care if it was shiny or not. If I just liked it, like I liked it, I threw it in my binder. I could have like 50 base cards of the same Pikachu. Like I didn't care. That's what I wanted. But like now, my 4-year-old nephew or cousin Josh loves Charizard. He loves Charizard. If it's shiny and it's got Charizard on it, he wants it. So I think there definitely is like a big push to know the bigger names and want to collect, like, I don't know, in baseball, your favorite player as a kid. Now it's you have a favorite Pokemon and you want it in the alt art. You want it in the shiniest version possible. So yeah, I think there is a little bit more of a demand from that. And I mean, to your point, Diamond and Pearl, like now we look at it and it's a super expensive set, awesome cards, awesome artwork. But back then it sat on shelves for like months at a time. Like it was not a very desirable product.
Tommy, people collect sealed wax in Pokemon, not invest, collect.
Well, okay. Few things. I have a few thoughts here from my ignorant brain. First, yes, the sealed wax for Pokemon is way cooler looking. So that makes sense to me that people would want to collect it because it looks way cooler than
very displayable. Yeah.
Yeah. Super displayable. That's a good way of putting it. I like to hear that there's the same phenomenon going on in Pokemon as in sports right now, where in order to keep the amount of hits, like in order to increase the amount of hits you can get and like make the rips more fun, they have to expand the sets, like make it a bigger checklist basically. So it seems like that's a similar thing going on in Pokemon and sports. But Joe, you never finished. So I want to hear what's the origin of Trading Card Joe? Like how, because we got up to like 16, 17. Yeah. And then we sidetracked. So you got to get back. Tell us we never got to who is Trading Card Joe.
Yeah, my bad. Easily sidetracked. Trading Card Joe is somebody who was laid off during COVID and was like just playing video games, having fun. I was playing a bunch of games, like just old Call of Duties that I played when I was younger. And all of a sudden I was like, I went and visited my parents and they're like, hey, we were cleaning out storage. Here's a shoebox full of baseball cards, Pokemon cards, etc. And I was like, oh man, like I see Gary V talking about sports cards and Pokemon cards and everything. I was like, let me check eBay or whatever and see what these are worth. And like an hour later, I'm like, wow, I got like $600 here. Like this is pretty crazy. Like I'm checking my childhood collection. And to be honest, like I was like, okay, well I can sell these on eBay. And I had Instagram, I had Twitter at the time. And to be honest, I never checked Twitter. And so for whatever reason, I think Gary V was like putting stuff on Twitter. So I went and just started watching his content. And all of a sudden I started seeing like, I would search like Pokemon or something in the search bar of Twitter. And I came across Ryan's cards. And this dude is slinging cards left and right, selling everything under the sun. And I'm sitting here just like amazed at like what he's doing. So he was actually a really big inspiration to me when I first started because I saw that it was actually possible to like sell stuff on Twitter and sell cards and make connections with people over it. So I was like, I can do this. I was like, I can sell cards. Like I want to like meet people who like the same stuff as I do. So I actually went on eBay and I think the first like modern age product I bought was 2020 Illusions basketball. Such a terrible product now that I think about it.
One of my first trades I have a very similar Twitter story, like how I got back into it. And like I just like searched baseball cards on Twitter one day basically and like found I think Dixon's cards, who like does mainly sports stuff. But yeah, I was like had the same thought of like, oh, what the fuck? There's all these people on Twitter who collect cards and I never even knew about this like community. Like I just want to be a part of it. And I feel like it's super similar about that. So where'd you go from there?
Yeah, so I bought some Illusions product. I ripped it open. I got like my best hit out of like 10 boxes. I spent so much money. It was ridiculous for a product that's terrible. I got like I think it was Zion Williamson Flux Yellow rookie card. At the time was selling for like $50. I think now it's like 10 or something super cheap. And I sold it, and I was through the roof. Even though I lost a bunch of money, I was like, I can sell something, like this is crazy. And I sold it on eBay. And then like a couple months went by, and I was just kind of observing and watching people. I started following a bunch of people on Twitter, and then I forget how I even got really back into Pokemon on Twitter. I think I started doing a stack sale. Like I wanted to run my first one. I think I had baseball, non-sport, basketball, Pokemon, everything. And I think the Pokemon sold the best. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to get back into that. I had my parents ship me all my old cards, and I pretty much ran a stack sale with all my old childhood cards, made some money, and was like, okay, well, now I need more. Cause like, I want to do this again. And I made a tweet and reached out and had people sell me some cards. And honestly, I don't even think I asked for like a discount or anything. I think I just bought them and like sold them for like $1 more than I paid. Like it was not a very good business practice, but like I just wanted to like sell them and be involved.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's
Joe, you kind of know Logan, right? Former guest of the podcast.
Yeah, I'm meeting up with them in 2 hours. Actually, I'm gonna pick up a sports card lot.
Nice. I think he has like a kind of similar selling story, because like he started out just kind of like just selling his collection, or like his childhood collection, and like didn't like the art of buying lots to flip is something that I feel like you can only really learn from experience. Like you need to have a couple bad lots that you buy, and like a couple bad experiences with that. So how did you and Max meet? Max, you maybe want to hop in there.
Yeah, I was tweeting what are some good Pokemon card accounts to follow, and Trading Card Joe tags himself amongst others. And I'm like, okay, I respect the effort. I guess that's fun. This makes me have a negative view of you from the get-go.
I wasn't even trading cards then. I think I was still just normal old Joe. I don't think I had switched the name over yet.
You were already selling you were slinging trading cards.
I was, but I don't think I had the name. I only changed the name kind of recently.
What is the brand Trading Card Joe?
It is Trading Card Joe. That's just what it is.
You have your website?
Yes, not up. It's up on this upcoming Friday.
So you're not though cards full time, as Max likes to say. Cards full time.
I'm not cards full time. I work at a tech startup currently, which is pretty demanding. So, and also I couldn't afford to do cards full time yet. Hopefully within, my goal is a year or two. That's
your goal though is to make it full time.
Yeah. So Trading Card Joe happened because I learned how to buy lots, and I was like, this is super fun. And I think I had success because I was like, Ryan made stack sales events. He wasn't posting cards on Twitter just to post them. He was saying like, be here at 8:30 p.m. Like we're going to have some fun. Like, and I was like, oh, this guy knows how to do it. So I was making like little graphics, like saying like, guys, if you 7:30, I'm going to hand out some free cards. I'm going to hop on Twitter live to like give them away. Like, I don't know. I made an event, and I think I was not the first Pokemon person to do that, but I think I really like made the events huge, and it just kind of like hit it off. And then I found some success, and pretty much the rest is history, just slanging cards on Twitter now.
Nice. Well, all right. So me and Max talk a lot about how to sell cards, the different places that you can sell cards, which ones we like to buy on, which ones we like to sell on. You're the ones you've mentioned so far, eBay and Twitter. Mm-hmm. But I know that Pokemon, the world, there's more ways to liquidate in Pokemon. So do you want to maybe explain some of the different ways that you are able to sell Pokemon cards? And then Max, I want to hear about, you need to hop in after with how you sell Pokemon, because we haven't talked about Max's Pokemon slinging yet.
Yeah, eBay, Twitter, and then TCG Player. So if you're not familiar with TCG Player, people who actually play the TCG, that's where they'll go most of the time to buy their cards.
eBay bought them recently.
And eBay did buy them for a big chunk of change, which is I'm actually really happy about. I think if they integrate well, it'll be a good merger. Time will tell. But TCG Player, and what a lot of people don't understand, I think when you're such a heavy into just collecting Pokemon, you forget people are playing it. So like there's a meta, and there's cards that like dominate the TCG. Well, obviously those cards are going to be desired by the players, so their value is going to go up. So like, although battle styles, Chilling Reign and Fusion Strike, you can buy a booster for under $100 and $140 is MSRP. They have cards that are super playable and super desirable. So they might not have Charizard, but they have cards in the TCG that are super valuable. So TCG Player is where you're going to find most of your bulk cards, which are like a penny to 5 cents, all the way up to like higher end stuff, 500, 600. I would say the most common is eBay, TCG Player, and then Twitter. And then I know there's a couple other places like Bai.jp where you can get like Japanese cards. They do like auctions and stuff. But it's not as common as eBay or TCG Player.
So Max, have you ever sold or bought anything on TCG Player? I want to know more about the world.
I have not done either. So one of the biggest aspects of TCG Player is that in almost all situations, no pictures are involved. And this is useful and less effort for 10 cent, 20 cent, 30 cent cards that are just needed for decks, or lower end commons and uncommons that are just used for sets or for decks. For higher end cards, I would want to see pictures, and TCG does have that. But I would rather just use eBay just because it's a better indicator of the market and there's more reputation behind the sellers. Some TCG sellers are known for shadier shipping practices, especially given the no pictures element of it. In general, with collecting, with TCG, it's not viewed as, oh, this has a light scratch, this has corner wear, this is whatever. It's damaged, heavy played, moderately played, lightly played, near mint. And there is some subjectiveness and ambiguity in this. I know I bought a card at a North Carolina show that the seller said was moderately played, and it came back a PSA 8, which is near mint. Pleasant surprise. But sometimes you have to trust your own eye and scrutinize the subjectiveness for good or for bad when looking at it in these classifications.
All right, this is leading me to my next question for you guys, which is we talked about what people like to collect in the Pokemon world, but something that we love collecting cards, but we also love complaining about the companies that produce the cards and just, doing that sort of shenanigans. So Joe, what are like the things that Pokemon collectors, Pokemon like buyers and sellers, what are the things that like grind their gears and that like you see on Twitter a lot from the people? Like what are some things that happen that get people annoyed?
I would say when it comes to the TCG, I would say quality control is definitely a big one because collectors nowadays, from what I've seen, and obviously Twitter is a small sample of all of collectors, with especially like Nintendo.
Loud minority.
Yes, very loud minority. People nowadays want their cards to be near mint or better because they want to grade them, whether if they see value in it or if they want to just protect their collection. I think more people in the Pokemon community are grading more than ever. Like it's so popular. And to make a point on what Max said is TCG Player lays out their like standards. When you're buying on Twitter, near mint is like pretty close to mint. Light play is near mint, but like when you're on TCG Player, a card can have an indentation, scratches, and everything, and still be considered near mint. So like there's a little bit of like a condition issue when it comes to like what people on Twitter are collecting versus what they're collecting on TCG. So it's a little bit different, but I would say quality. Yeah, I would say quality control is the biggest complaint that I've seen, or overprinting.
Overprinting, yeah, I see it. All right, so there's a lot of similarities then between the sports card. Have you gotten into the world of grading at all with Pokemon? Is that something that you do? Do you submit at all, or like where? I know that there are like different. I know CSG has like their graded trading card company grading companies. Right? So like, which ones do you like? Which company would you grade with? Do you grade?
So Max is gonna yell at me because I don't grade a lot, and he texts me every day and he goes, "Hey, what are you grading?" So I don't grade a lot. I probably should. Honestly, like, and I don't have any problems with people who grade and then sell cards that they don't think will 10. Like, I have no problem with that. That's just how it is. I like to sell like raw cards. That's just what I like. And I want people to be able to like go on my website, buy a card. It's clean. They grade it. They get a 10. Like, I feel like there's some like excitement in that. But at the same time, I don't have any issues with people who grade and sell the other ones. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. PSA, CGC. I don't see a lot of SGC with Pokemon, very rarely. And then there's like TGA, the grading authority, and then a bunch of other pop-up shops that have started grading companies. It's very similar to sports. Like, I would say TGA is a mild version of HGA. They're better with their like customer service, but they're for like more colorful labels and stuff. But they're just a newer company, so I'm not going to grade there personally.
That makes sense. Lately, at LedX, we've been like trying to gather all the grading companies that we want to be able to like support on the app. And with Pokemon, we just started to look at all the different Pokemon grading companies that have started to pop up, and it is heinous how many are on eBay. If you look up a card, like how many absurd, like borderline fake grading companies there are out there.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, so I'll buy CGC and PSA, SGC depending on the card. But like, I'll tell you what, if it's not PSA or like a high end, like a 9.5 or above on CGC, it just doesn't sell. Or you have to like discount it just majorly. It's really hard to move stuff that's not PSA or high grade CGC.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Max,
it's very similar to sports there.
Max, do you have any thoughts on these on the world of grading for trading card games?
I'm not going to yell at you, Joe, for not grading yourself. I do think, though, that it's one of the easiest ways to move up and stack your bread in the card game. And I encourage everyone to do as many facets of the card game that you can. Speaking of grading, Tommy graded his Jordan Spieth green Topps Chrome Refractor, which I believe ends tonight at auction.
Ends tonight.
After grading a PSA 10. So Tommy's going to catch a bag on that one, hopefully.
It's called I'm referring to this as the great liquidation event of December 2022 for me, because I needed some cash.
Tommy needs cash.
I'll be good though.
But in regards to that, I think Pokemon specifically is easier because the quality control is bad, but it's over very little nuances. Sometimes there's very bad centering with Pokemon. That's the biggest issue. But most of the time, the surfaces are clean and there's no edge or corner issues if the cards are unplayed. So which results to like very high, like 70 to 80% gem rates on common valuable Pokemon cards that are produced very highly because the stuff is serial numbered, which is just an easy way to accumulate funds in your spare time. But if you want to also leverage your reputation of, hey, my cards are never picked through, have never even gone through the loop. I don't use loops, but have gone through the loop, then that's only one more way that you can make yourself more marketable as a seller.
That's really what my thought process was. The only really cards I want to grade are going to be like very high end cards. I mean, so like I buy lots, like 300, 400 card lots once or twice a week. And I don't have time because it's just myself to look through and pick out the ones to grade. So I know it would be beneficial for my business in like a financial sense to like focus on that. But I think I am going to be hiring somebody part-time to help with like inventory stuff. So I might be getting more into that, but I do want that full transfer. I think there is a lack of transparency on like TCG Player of what condition is. So like, I want to be like an industry leader when it comes to like, when you're buying a near mint or mint card, it is exactly what it says it is.
The counterpoint is that mint to gem mint to near mint is very subjective, and that without a third-party grading company getting an independent view on it, which is why we have third-party grading companies and not first and second-party grading companies, that not being able to guarantee anything higher than near mint is done as an operation to protect the seller.
Yeah.
And to not put in an irrational expectation of the buyer. That's why it's near mint or better.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I think TCG Player and how they lay out their card conditioning standards is very clear. But I think from like what I see on Twitter, if I say near mint and I show them a card, and then on TCG Player, I say near mint and I show you the card, there's definitely a disconnect. Yeah. Near mint on Twitter is LP or MP on, or near mint on Twitter is like PSA or Beckett Black label on TCG Player. Like, it's just very, very different.
I think it's interesting how you're remarking on the time that it takes to sift through a lot, because I think, at least for Pokemon, the biggest thing, especially for older cards, is condition. You can have a Gem Mint 2003 Expedition Charmander, which is Charmander is a common card. This is from a 2003 set, and that will I'm just taking a guess, might be worth $100 or maybe $50, or at the very least worth your margin, let alone a Poliwhirl rare hollow from that set. And a PSA 10 or even a PSA 9 still commands a lot because it's high grade and those cards are very difficult to find. Even when I go to my local gaming store, I'm not really stack selling or anything of that operation anymore, but I'm looking for play Pokemon League play cards that are just like near mint ish, hopefully near mint or better, but so many of these are thrashed that if I can just find a card in PSA 9 or PSA 10 condition from before 2014, then I want to buy that. Simply because there's so few mint copies that even exist because these cards are meant to be played or shoved in binaries.
That makes
Emphasis
sense.
on shove.
But
And my own collecting endeavor is I enjoy Diamond and Pearl subset from 2007, from 2006 to 2008, Platinum and Diamond and Pearl. I'm looking for gem mint copies of my favorite Pokemon from these sets that have very few copies even graded.
All right. I have to be the bearer of bad news here. We got one more question for Joe, and then we're going to do our little closing segment, which is always classic. But Joe, we haven't talked at all about what you collect. So let the people know what is in the trading card Joe PC. What do you collect?
I find it, so since I'm a small growing business, I find it really hard to collect stuff that I can sell. So right now, I am not collecting any sets for Pokemon. Really, if it's a TCG, I'm not collecting it because I can liquidate it very quickly. And it just doesn't make sense for that money to sit on the shelf, even though it does bring me joy. So I'm a huge Harry Potter fan and a huge Game of Thrones fan. So I actually just bought 3 Game of Thrones autos 2 days ago. And then I got a 2001 Panini Harry Potter sticker and a PSA 9.
Oh, hell yeah. I ripped that 2001 sticker set. I ripped a box of that. Like
not the gold shiny. It's a yellow border one.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got you. We actually talked about this like 20 episodes ago because the debate between like the sticker versus card world is interesting, but that's cool. I like the non-sport. I fuck with that. That's sick. So
big sport. I love movies. I love TV shows. I find myself like binging them, and I'm just like when I look around. So like I've got like some Star Wars, some Pokemon, like Game of Thrones, and then Lord of the Rings and stuff. So like I don't know. I love movies. I was like, why not start collecting those? So that's what I'm gonna get, a nice like shadow box to get them displayed and everything, and that's what I'm collecting right now.
I love that. But we end every episode here. First of all, Joe, don't worry about it. You're our Pokemon guy. If there's ever big Pokemon, whenever there's big Pokemon stuff going on, we're gonna have you on again. So
sounds good.
I know we have way more things to talk about. Don't feel bad that we didn't get to all of them, but we like to talk about like our recent pickups. So you mentioned you're gonna go pick up a lot from Logan. What's your thought process behind buying a sports card lot? What is in that lot? Like, what are you looking for? And like, maybe if you have another purchase that you made in the last week that you want to talk about, go for it.
Yeah, so I have 2 purchases I'll talk about. The Logan one I think is really interesting. I was watching, I forget exactly who on YouTube, but they were like, when I want to get into an industry or like a market, I buy a bunch of cheap stuff from it, and then I learn everything I can about it. So I think I have a pretty good understanding of like the high-end sports market because that's what you see like on Twitter, like this sold for X, this sold for Y. I know nothing about the $1 to $3 market. So Logan had this bulk lot up for sale, and he was basically like, who wants it? And I was like, I want to learn more about sports. I'm trying to beef up my eBay. And I was like, I'll take it. So it's pretty much, I'm not expecting to make any money anytime soon on this lot. It's purely education. So I can learn about different parallels, base, numbered, if there's any in there, or patches, whatever. I just want to learn more about the market so I feel comfortable making larger purchases.
Totally get that. I like that a lot. I feel like we talk about that a lot, but just like learning to trust your instincts. Like when I'm looking through a lot now, I'm like, or like if I'm going at a show yesterday and I'm looking through $1, $5 bin, it took a really long time for me to be like, oh, this is like even a bin worth going through. And
Right.
like recognizing the signs of like, oh dang, this dude put this in this bin. Like he put like a 2014 red hot Mookie in like $100 bin. You know, just like things where you're just like,
Sure.
I'm just spitting off the top of my head. But that's cool. We'll have to follow up on that. So next time Trading Card Joe's on, we'll have to talk about your education into the sports card world for sure and get deeper into that stuff. But that's cool. What do you have another purchase that you want to talk about?
Yeah. So like mainly what I'm trying to buy is alternate arts. Like that's just it. The artwork's awesome. They're a little bit more limited because the pull rates. And people love them. People want to grade them. People want to buy them. So that's really kind of all I've been buying. And with my like normal margin, I try to grab them every time I can. So if you ever have if you ever see alternate art Pokemon that's on sale, good deal, I would grab it. That's my recommendation.
For me, the ignorant person, I know what a normal Pokemon card kind of looks like. What would be like the indicators that something's an alternative art card?
Let's see here. So that's a good question. Max, how would you answer that?
Did you hear the question, Max?
I'm going to toss it back at you, Joe.
Yeah, I would say the best indication is if it's a full art card. So if the art covers the entire piece of card,
there's no border. There's no border.
And then you can look at the set number. The set is 175, and the set number is over that. You can tell if it's going to be an alternate art or a secret rare, any of those. So just a little bit.
Cool. So I include both in my eBay titles. I usually just say full art, alt art. You can call me. I also put RC in actual first Bowman cards as well. But apropos to that, I don't agree with the set numbering. I could be wrong here because the set numbering just indicates if it's a secret rare or not. You can recognize the effort that goes into an alt art because you can tell it's not a usual trading card design. Like it's more aesthetic and it's more artistic and maybe even collectible, while the full art is just indicative of how much of the illustration takes up on the card. And there's also cards that break the usual frame of the card, but are still not full arts. So I toss it back on you part because I find it difficult to answer myself. And I usually just don't care enough to. However, alt arts and a secret rare is not mutually exclusive from a full art and an alt art. And most alt arts are full arts.
All right, we'll get more into this next episode.
Yeah, it's very technical because there can be cards that the artwork is the full like display of the card, but it's not considered a full art. Okay. Even though the art is on the full card. It gets a little technical.
This seems like a Pokemon 201 for me. Maybe next.
Yeah,
next
it gets a little technical. I just learned it like a couple months ago. I was like misnaming cards. So education is important in the hobby as always.
No, it's not.
All right, Max.
No, it's not.
What did you buy, Max? You went to a card show today. You want to give us give us a vibe check maybe, and then what'd you pick up?
Vibe's bad. Same show that is one of my local shows, but this one is. I hate to keep bashing them, but 50% of the ownership of the National runs this show. It was the same dealers as it usually is. I bought Zilch. I probably should have bought maybe even a blaster or something like that. But I bought Zilch. I bought 0 cards. I went to a card show yesterday on Saturday, and I bought 2 boxes of value boxes, I suppose, but more so just junk on people's table that I want to capitalize on them being lazy on. And I made some good deals there. I bought about $750 of me spending on their value boxes. I bought the whole box, which is something I usually don't do. I bought the whole box of one guy, and I bought 1 row of another guy.
What was the TLDR of those lots that you bought?
But I want to give the long form.
All right, whatever. Do the long form then.
One of them was from a local card shop that is a big Facebook breaker in my local area. And I don't know how exactly they required the cards. Maybe collections. People that buy collections are the best people to buy off of because they're already into it for so cheap that
breakers and dudes that like rip a ton of wax end up with like random stuff that they
I know the success of the shop isn't based off how well they buy and sell cards, it's how well they break. So I know that, I mean, just on my own experience, they aren't the best buyers and sellers. in my opinion.
That makes sense.
But it was mostly slabs. I'm trying to get better at buying in bulk, and I've decompressed that into trying to estimate the amount of cards in the box and the average value of the card, which, of course, there's a balance of negotiation and ethics. Part of it is it's not my responsibility to count your cards and let you know how many cards you have in your box because they're not my cards. But at the same time, I don't know what's in your box. I'm literally looking at these cards for the first time and I don't know the values of them. The onus is on you to give me a price.
Yeah, but like some people don't go looking to sell their boxes though, you know?
No,
Like
exactly. Like I'm not going to like actively like miscount your cards, but I'm saying like if I'm saying, "Oh, okay, I think the average value of the cards in here are closer to $5 per than 10," then I'm also coming in uneducated on your box. But as the seller, you should have at least a general gauge of what your box is worth or even what is in your box.
yeah,
And
that's actually good advice though. Like if you're going to a show, if you're gonna set up at a show, you should have a price ready for your box. Like if you have a value bin,
I
like
wouldn't
just
even say you should have a price ready, but you should know like, hey, this box is mostly $20 cards. And then I look through it, I'm like, okay, that checks out. There's $120 cards. This is worth, I'm not doing the math, even though I was almost a math minor. I've had taken advanced classes, math classes before. But okay, this box is worth this much based off the $20 per card by 100. And I'm going to give you this percent of the face value, 50%, 60%, 70%, whatever pixie dust you want to throw at it. Saying it with conviction helps, and also recognizing that you are the liquidity giver, that makes me more firm in my offers. It's like my offer is not 450, my offer is 400. I'm not going to meet you in the middle of 425. But
yeah.
maybe that's because I'm a hardball.
You are a hard baller, but I love hearing Max's negotiation tactics.
And
But I'm shutting you down, Max. One more,
but
you have 1 more minute to explain your
yeah, no, latest eBay buys. Because we're getting into what I bought lately outside of those value boxes. I bought a PSA 9 UEFA gold, green bubbles of Erling Haaland. It was a PSA 9. We'll see if that stays that way.
The fuck is a green bubbles?
So in UEFA Topps Chrome 2019 and 2020, they made bubbles variations, which were hobby exclusive, but you had to calculate the print run by hand. For green bubbles, I believe it's 99. It's just like the regular green parallel. But I know like aqua bubbles is like at a 62 in 2020. And there's some really fun PR calculations that some people don't know how rare the item is. But I won it at auction. I won that for that was a nice Erling Haaland rookie that I bought, and I bought another Bones Highland Gold Pulsar out of 10, which is making me uneasy.
Stop
But
buying pulsars mainly, but all right.
well,
I don't mind.
I owned one. I wanted to double down and own two, and then a third also went at auction, which is weird for an out of 10 card.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
My one pickup I'm going to talk about, or because I talked about it last week with the eBay authentication question. Joe, I bought the card that like was really, really mislabeled, like just like clearly missing information in the title. And it was just like a seller that had zero feedback on eBay, but it's a card I've been after for a really long time. It's this like rare Obama card. And so I bought it with authenticity guaranteed. And I got it at a price that I was very happy about. So I was like, please God, have this pass authenticity because no one's faking this card. But the title was so bad that I was like, are they even going to accept it because it's so off, from what the card actually is? But it passed eBay authentication and I got it in hand. So I'm very happy about that.
Congrats.
So that was cool. And my first experience with eBay authentication and went smoothly. So it like was done in a day and whatever. I got it fast. So that's my one anecdote. I have a really big trade that I made, Max, with Rich Moy, big fan of the program. So
I saw the Power Rangers.
Yeah,
that's super cool.
Yeah, I bought these we traded. I got these like a lot of acetate Power Ranger cards that are absolutely fire. So I'll be talking about that next week a little bit more because me and Rich are getting back.
You acquired the Power Rangers. What did you give up?
So I've been on a hot streak with packs. I've been absolutely on a heater. So I ripped a hanger and I pulled the home field advantage Julio Rodriguez rookie, which is an absolute fire looking card. And It's like Joe. I don't know if you know Joe. It's like the downtown looking inserts that Topps made.
Yeah, I'm familiar with them. Yeah.
But so I got in the hanger. I wasn't into it much. Rich is a great friend of the program, and he reached out and was like, "Would you be interested potentially in like a big lot of these graded Power Rangers for the Julio Rodriguez?" And I'm like, honestly, Rich, that sounds like something I'm down to do. That sounds kind of fun. And like, I don't know, Power Rangers were a big part of like, I was a Power Ranger like 3 straight years for Halloween and like 4, 5, 6 or whatever ages. So I was like, you know what? I'm down for this, Joe. I mean, Rich, like I'm not invested into this Julio card. I just pulled it. Like I have the short print that I pulled from update 2. So I'm like, I don't need 2 sick Julio cards. And Rich has been such a good friend of the program. I was like, I'm super down to do kind of a fun kind of, who even knows what the value of these Power Rangers cards are, but I'm kind of down to do a fun trade like that. So that was really fun.
Cards, they're sleepers. Sometimes you got some crazy value hidden in there.
Yeah, and he graded them too. So I'm like, these are graded. They're like, who knows? The population of these is going to be like nothing. So
yeah, and they were like 9s, which is like tough for acetate in general.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm excited about that trade, but I'll get that in hand hopefully by next episode, and we'll talk about it more. But Joe, you want to give the people, let them know where they can find you during the week, and
yeah. So right now my Twitter handle is Joseph McLean with 2 N's, or you can just search Trading Card Joe. And this upcoming Friday, 12/16, you can go to tradingcardjoe.com and buy all of your favorite English and Japanese singles for all of your sets that you need to collect.
Sweet. Well, we'll make sure to post about that on the Young Old Head socials and stuff when the website is live. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing some of your knowledge with us. Definitely going to have you on again to talk about whenever the next big Pokemon thing is coming around, or if you feel like you're starting to do more sports and want to talk about how you've been learning about that world. I think next episode we have plenty of stuff to cover more. And if you're listening to this and have questions for Joe that you would want us to talk to him about next time he's on, so just reach out in the DMs and we'll make it happen. But really appreciate it. Max, do you have any parting thoughts for the young old heads out there?
Pokemon.
We'll see you guys next week, and thank you, Joe.
Thank you, guys.